All right, we are live. We're just doing a sound check really quick. Want to make sure that you guys can hear us. Mariela? All right, we are live. Yep, it is. We're just doing a sound check really quick. Want to make good. Okay. So, hi everybody. This is Jose Luiz Morales, and you're live with the Jose Luiz Morales Real Estate Show. I got a very special friend / guest. He's a mentor. He's a good friend of mine. His name is Aaron Novello. Before I introduce him, I just wanted to just give you guys a little bit of detail about the show. The purpose of this real estate show, or the purpose of this show, is basically meant to just provide value, to provide you guys with tools, and to just give back and share with you guys things on real estate, things on business, anything that helps you guys in terms of personal development. So throughout the show, if you like anything that we're saying, please make sure to give us some hearts, give us some of those wow faces. And if you have any questions throughout the show, please make sure to comment. I've got a live feed on an iPad right next to me, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So, Angel says that, oh, I can hear you. Fantastic. Okay, good. So today's guest, his name's Aaron Novello. He's from Plantation, Florida. Aaron sells about 150 real estate transactions, and he's been selling over 100 homes for the last 5 years. Yes, over 100 homes for the last 5 years. So this guy's the real deal. I mean, if there's somebody out there that's doing it, it's him. And now he's a speaker. He's doing speaking engagements, just focused on just giving back. He's also the co-author of a book. It's called Taming Your Sales Gremlin, which he's going to be talking to a little bit about today. So, Aaron, welcome to the show, buddy.
Welcome, bro. Thanks for having me.
How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. How are you?
Good, man. Just excited. A little bit nervous at times, but we got it.
You'll get through it, right?
Yeah. Good, man. So for those of you that don't know who you are, do you mind sharing, like, who is Aaron Novello?
Who is Aaron Novello? So, I'm a residential real estate agent. I've had the good fortune of selling real estate for the last 11 years. It's the only thing I've really done. I did it right out of college. And you'd mentioned I have the good fortune of selling over 100 homes a year every year for the last 5 years. This year makes it 6 that we've done that. And I have a lovely wife, Carla. I have 2 little kids, Sebastian and Liliana, 6 and 3. And that's who I am. That's what I'm about, man.
That's good, man. It's good to hear. So how did you get into the real estate business? I know that you said that you went to the University of Florida. Is that right?
I did, yeah. And coming up, I was kind of mildly obsessed with building wealth. I was telling people a story the other day. I was 10 and I sold Airheads out of my backpack at the bus stop. And I would take the money, man, and I would I'd iron it. And I'd actually put it in, remember those old plastic baseball cases?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For your baseball cards? I used to put it in the baseball cards and just fan it out, man. I just, from a young age, I understood that I liked this thing called money. And I wanted, to earn it in high volume. So I would read a lot of books, and a lot of those books had a tendency to gravitate towards real estate. So I figured what better way to learn that vehicle than to help people buy and sell it.
Absolutely.
So that's how that ended up coming to fruition, yeah.
100%, man. Yeah, that's cool, man. I never knew this story about the Airheads.
Yeah, bro, out of the backpack at the bus stop, man.
That's funny. Good, man. And once you got into the business, what were some of the challenges that you faced initially? And tell me what your production looked like at the very beginning.
Yeah, so at the beginning, it wasn't much, man. I think the first 9 months I sold real estate, I made $15,000. And I had my wife. She had a job at the time at the Princeton Review. She was kind of my sponsor, man. Where she was covering everything while I was 100% committed to trying to figure it out. And really, the challenge is obtaining an accurate assessment of reality. So by that, what I mean is that, clearly, from the time I was little, I had that kind of hustle muscle and I was interested in earning income, and I was willing to work. I didn't have a clear assessment as to what work was as far as this particular business is concerned, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's so many things that people call work, but there's only a handful that actually pay money. Mm-hmm. So, once I kind of got that accurate assessment of reality, and it became crystal clear to me as to what the activities were that led to income, that's when the production started to take off. So I went from, very little that first 9 months, maybe 13,000. The next full year, I think we made like 115 in income. And then I actually transferred marketplaces. I moved down to Southeast Florida because my mom, she had a brain bleed that rendered her handicapped. So I just moved everything and transferred and started from scratch again, and went from 17 deals to 50, and then from 50 to 79, and from 79 to 89, 89 to 100. And this year, as you mentioned, we'll do 152 closing pending.
Damn, is that the most that you've ever done?
Yeah, it's the most we've ever done.
So it's a record year.
It's a record, man.
That's good, man. Good. And I know that obviously you've been a mentor in my life. You've guided me. I attribute a big portion of my success to some of the calls that we had. You've seen it all, man. So have you had any mentors that have influenced your life in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, without question. So my experience with mentors is that they can kind of condense decades worth of learning into days or weeks or months, right? And I kind of think about them as like shortcuts to the library. Mm-hmm. So in other words, like, all the information that's available to you now, particularly because of this space and kind of slice in time that we find ourselves in, even that me and you are looking at each other and we're sharing this with, hundreds of people that are watching. 200 years ago, I'm reading a book right now about Lewis and Clark. The fastest thing on the planet was a horse. So if you wanted to move information 200 years ago, you had to wait as long as it takes for a horse to get there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where now we can transfer information like that. So, and then because of great guys like Ben Franklin and Andrew Carnegie, who, recognize the value of information and building libraries and things, the access to information is just silly. So all the information that you could possibly want to make you quicker, better, faster, stronger, it's available, right? And a great mentor, what they can do is they can serve as a shortcut to that library. It's kind of like you're standing in the library and you're like, wow, there's so many books. And a great mentor can sit in the aisle and be like, hey, what do you want to know about? And you're like, well, I want to know about selling. I want to know about wealth. Okay, great. He's like, look, he or she is like, hey, go get these 5 books. Read them in this order. And after you're finished reading them, come back to me and talk to me, right? Because in order to change your behavior, you have to change your philosophy. And that's the way that you're thinking about things. So yeah, I've had a good number of mentors that are both living, but also that I've never met before, because I've connected them with them, through books or seminars or tapes, and they're no longer even here on the planet anymore, but they're still teaching me and guiding me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the legacy that they left behind, the books. A lot of the great people that have done great things, they've been generous enough to leave it back in books for all of us to basically read and listen to and learn off of.
Yeah, so, humanity, it's interesting because I went today, my son, he goes to a Montessori school, and they had this thing where he taught, like, where the kids in elementary, they teach the parents. Mm-hmm. So during that day, they teach the parents. And one of the lessons were they were showing the timeline of human history. And what was really interesting is when humans show up, the slice of time in which humans have been around is like this, as compared to the rest of time and all the other animals and kind of things that have been around before humans. So it's a tiny space. And what's really interesting is in that tiny space, humans have been recording their experience on kind of the human experience. They've done this through books. They've done this through plays. They've done this through music. Mm-hmm. And from that, you can gather very, very useful information. Because there's two things that you can learn from people. You can learn what to do, right? But you can also learn what not to do. So as you're kind of gathering information and developing your own philosophy, there's like examples, like, hey, do this. And then there's warnings, like, don't do this.
Don't do that.
Right? Yeah. So it's extremely valuable. Both are very valuable, right? So, by exposing yourself to that kind of collective human history, look, I don't need to be brilliant. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I get to pick from the most brilliant people, and I get to learn from other people's experiences, right? Which is very helpful because I don't have to go through, kind of the bumps and hurdles that maybe they had to go through to come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, and that's the same way that I look at it. Like, for example, like if I want to be able to sell 150 homes on a yearly basis, hey, I got to find someone who's already doing it and be like, hey, what are you doing? It's kind of like that recipe story, that chef. Remember the chef story that you mentioned to me?
Of course.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Like finding people that are already doing whatever it is that you want to do. So for the listeners or the viewers, I mean, if you want to become a real estate investor, find a real estate investor that's already making it happen and is already doing it. If you want to sell 150 homes, find somebody like Aaron who's already doing it and be like, hey, man, what do I have to do? And then he's going to tell you whatever it takes. But or whatever it is, if you want to be a doctor, find a doctor who's already a doctor and be like, hey, what am I going to have to go through? What are some of the things? Because they can really they've already been there. So a lot of the things that you're going to go through, they can guide you and they can be like, hey, Aaron, you're going to see once you get to the stop sign, make a left. Then once you get to the light, make a right.
Yes.
And they can foresee a lot of the things that you're going to be going through. And that's kind of what you've done for me. Kind of just like, hey, dude, this is what you're going to face. This is how to handle this. Because you've been there,
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's extremely helpful. And the other thing to consider, too, is like, being willing to invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. I heard, I think Ben Franklin, he said something like, if you invest in stuff, that's one thing. But if you invest in yourself, that's an investment that always continues to return. Mm-hmm. Right. So, absolutely. And I also heard somebody say too, he said, I mentor children, but I coach adults. Mm. So like willing to in other words, like if you find somebody who's doing what you want to do at a really high level, like being willing to compensate them for their time to teach them like, hey, what do I need to do this? Yeah. Right. Because that investment in yourself, I really think there's this gigantic gap in our education system between information and then actual practical, something that you can apply, like applicable knowledge that actually leads to income. Mm-hmm. So, if you find somebody who's doing that, be willing to, not only compensate them for their time, but also be willing to try to add value to them in some way,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things that you've always been focused on. And that's one of the things that attracted me to you at the very beginning. It was just your consistent focus on focusing on how can I add value? Like whatever it is that you're doing is how can I add value to this individual? And even I think that's one of the big reasons why you sell 150 homes. It's not just like, okay, it's not about taking. It's how can I add value to these people's situation to be able to help them. And if they need my services, great. And if I can't help them, then so be it,
Yeah, and that's huge, bro. Like this idea of intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So like being crystal clear on what is my intention. It's my intention to take. Because that feels a certain way when your intention is to take. I know it does for me. It feels, I don't know. I feel like really self-conscious. I'll feel like I'll be overly concerned about kind of like the spotlight is on me, overly concerned on the outcome. Is my intention to prove myself worthy? A lot of times people come from that place, right? Kind of like, oh, look at me, please, please, please. Or is my intention to serve, right? Is my intention to add value, right? And not only add value, but add 10x to value, or like 5x. Like, whatever you're giving me in return, I want to give you 10 times more back. And I firmly do believe that when you do that, it ends up returning to you, in multiple ways. And it's kind of like, if you had a scale, have you ever seen those doctor scales? That have
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a scale, right, and the tendency for most people is to look at the rewards part of the scale and be like, yo, I want that. I want Jose's income. I want Jose's house. I want Jose's car, right? Like I want the accoutrements or the trophies of success, right? So they're looking at that part of the scale. But what's interesting is they're focusing on the wrong part because the other part is value. And what's interesting is as you add more value and the value gets dense, it gets heavy, right? You get more value. What happens to the rewards?
It starts growing, you start making more income.
It naturally goes up. Naturally goes up. So your kind of income or your kind of place in space economically speaking is directly correlated with the value that you're providing to the marketplace. That if you're not adding that much value, then you don't make much money.
Yeah, the marketplace is going to let you know whether they're seeing enough value. I mean, if the marketplace is seeing enough value, obviously they're going to hire you and put you to work a lot, you know. And if they're not seeing enough value with your services, then you're just going to get rejected, and you're really not going to do the amount of business that you want to do.
Well, yeah, and the, you know, the focus instead should be on like, okay, if I want more, then I have to be more.
Mm-hmm.
And the being more part is not something you can outsource.
No.
It's kind of like, yeah, I know you're doing your body challenge, right?
Yeah.
Getting your body diesel on, right? Well,
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting. You can't outsource push-ups.
No.
You can't. You can't. I mean, you can hire a trainer, right? I mean, you can be standing next to you, he or she, like, yo, get at it. They could give you motivation, but you can't outsource the push-ups.
You're telling me that there's not an app for that? Like, I can't just download an app on my iPhone and outsource it?
No, dude. So that's what's interesting. Like, you can't outsource consistency. You can't outsource the dirt. You know, you can't outsource the grind. You can't outsource the character piece, the values piece. You can't outsource that. So the being more part, and the challenge about being more is that takes time,
mm-hmm.
right? Because what you're doing is you're cultivating yourself as a human being. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, you know, if I was to plant a seed, right, in a garden. Now, you know intuitively that seed's going to take what to grow?
Water. Water is going to take time and water.
Yes, time, water, nutrition, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you have some control over a few of those things, like the water, the nutrition, maybe the kind of its positioning, right? But then it takes what? Time. Mm-hmm. So you know that for sure. But here's what's interesting. If I was planting a garden and you were to watch me and stand over me and you see me yelling at the garden, I'm like, come on, man, you got to hurry up. You gotta grow, bro. Like, hurry up. Make this thing faster, like quicker, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you saw me doing that, what would you think?
I think you're crazy. I'd be like, what are you doing yelling at it? You know, it takes time, man.
Yeah, you'd be like, bro, it takes time. Like, that's just the way it is. It's a plant. Uh-huh. It's silly. It's foolish. Not only that, you're wasting energy yelling because it's not accomplishing anything. And what I find the tendency, present company excluded, right? Yeah. For most people is to do precisely that to themselves. Is to yell, scream, berate. And it took me a long time to realize that being hard on myself doesn't strengthen me, it weakens me. Mm-hmm. You know, and giving myself time to grow into the person that can do the things that I want to do so that way I can have the stuff I want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It takes time, man. And I think that's one of the big things that, I mean, you said it yourself, that people like underestimate how long it's actually going to take to become a top producer, because I'm sure that during your career, when you were producing 17 deals, 40 deals, I'm sure that there was times that you felt like frustrated and you wanted, obviously, I mean, we want that, we all want that in our society. We want that easy fix. We want that magic pill. We want the liposuction, whatever it is. We want that easy route. So what are some of the things, man, that like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned throughout the journey of becoming the Aaron Abello now, who's selling 150 homes, the man? like, was there ever times that you felt like giving up?
Of course, bro. Yeah. Numerous times. I not as frequently now, but probably within the first 5 years in my march up to 100. Because it took 5 years to get to 100. At least 4 times a year, I'd kind of have this conversation with my wife and be like, you know, I could do something else. There's something else I could be doing, mm-hmm. right? And oftentimes it was because I was frustrated with short-term results. I was focused on the short-term instead of the long-term. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that's true is that, you know, it's simple, but it's not easy, man. Mm-hmm. And I remember specifically there was a day, and I think I shared this with you, where I remember because when I made the move down here to Southeast Florida, I mean, I lived with my in-laws for a year, man. And that's okay, so here's what this puts, it's a really good point, is that I think being mentally kind of strong and tough is really important, because this is not a loving, caring environment. Mm-hmm. No. I mean, the jungle, like, doesn't care, bro. Like, it's like, you know, it just doesn't. And it's kind of like the lion on the Serengeti, right? He's like chasing down a gazelle to want to eat it. And let's say the gazelle gets away, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, the lion could like look up to the sky and be like, it's not fair. It's not right. I deserve That gazelle, I chased it for, a mile, which is really hard for me because I'm big and it's all sweaty here. It's hot out. But that's not going to do anything, man. If he's still hungry, he or she's going to have to go out and
get more.
Yeah. So, and that's the kind of challenge. So I think for me, without question, there were times I wanted to quit. And what helps me with that is reading about people who really have actually endured real struggle. Mm-hmm. Like not hitting your goals for the year. Not taking your listing goal, for the month. Like you read about people who endured real struggle. Like I'm reading a book right now about Lewis and Clark about their expedition. Man, that was real, dude. Real. That was not knowing, nobody had ever been west of the Mississippi. They didn't know what kind of Indians they were going to bump into, if they're going to be friendly or not. They didn't know where they're going to get food from. Didn't know what geography was going to happen, the weather. That's real struggle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I find that by kind of exposing myself to that and, just having experiences in life, because everybody, including everybody on this call, everybody's experienced stuff. For me, it was my mom with her brain bleed. I mean, that was legitimate. That was, a grown woman having a brain bleed, which, nobody kind of tapped her on the shoulder and said, hey, this is going to happen to you in 90 days. And that was, going from being fully functional to a tube in her belly and, diapers. I mean, that was real hardship. Yeah. And that requires, you to be mentally strong and tough to deal with that. And I'm not saying this to brag or boast, it's just what my experience was. And it made me stronger, man, it did. Because it was an unexpected thing that happened. Mm-hmm. And that type of stuff happens all the time. And that unexpected thing, caused, me to sleep over her house every weekend for 2 years to help her to kind of get her back to a place where she could be functional. And then as far as the execution piece, executing, see, because like you said, like those times I feel like giving up, like what I think about are all the people that would be affected by my lack of execution, by my lack of continuing, by my lack of continuing to be persistent. Mm-hmm. Because my mom right now, I mean, I love her to death. And what's true is she would live in a nursing home and not a condo like she lives in now if I didn't execute. Yeah. Because I was able to, at 27, buy her a condo, So exposing myself through books, through people and experiences. I took a trip to Haiti probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I did that consciously and purposely. So that way I can expose myself to real hardship, man. Yeah, to people that are actually not struggling. Like, somebody, yeah, man, like real, like that's, 2 billion people on the planet subsist on less than $10 a day. Like that's real. Struggle. Yeah. like struggling to get from 25 to 50. Yeah. Like it just allows perspective. Yeah, hey, I can relate to that a lot because when I think about it, like oh yes, like somebody yelled at me on the phone, like big deal. Like I think about like my parents when they grew up, they were agricultural workers. That is real struggle, man. That is being up at 5 a.m. every single day, like till 8 o'clock with your back bent, earning $8 an hour. That is real struggle in my marketplace. That's really big. There's a lot of people that do that type of labor, So I was telling my fiance this, like when we think about like how blessed we actually are to have these wonderful opportunities to be able to work in an office with air conditioning instead of being out in the fields 80, 90 degrees with your back bent over earning $8 an hour. Yeah, and recognizing too that experience is all over the place. I mean, that's in the people who drive your cabs, the people who cook your food, the people who are like at the restaurants, like. And to recognize that, look, this is an opportunity. Like you have hit the lottery. 100%. Like not only did you get plopped out onto the richest country on planet Earth at this moment, because you had a 1 in 50 chance of getting plopped down in China or in India. Yeah. Just based on numbers. And there's a large probability that because a lot of that population, has a certain kind of lower standard of living, and your life would be more difficult. So you got plopped down here. So not only did you hit the lottery with where you get plopped down, but then you hit the lottery in bumping into a profession where for $1,000 and you need to get a C on a test. A C. 70%. Okay. So you bumped into a professional for $1,000 and you need to get a C on the test. You can, right? Earn hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the course of your career. So staying focused on the opportunity, not on the obligation. You know, people say to me, they're like, wow, man, like you prospect every day. It's like, okay, well, if you cut grass, right? You came up to me and you're like, hey, bro, I'm going to tell you something's going to blow your mind. And you're like, I'm like, what is it, man? What is it? And you're like, come here, man. It's a big deal. I'm like, what is it? And you're like, every day when I go cut grass.
Every day what? I'm sorry. I didn't catch
like, you think I'm crazy, right? Because you'd be like, I said, like, if I was cutting grass, right? And that was my job, and I came to it, I was like, hey, man, I'm going to share something with you that's amazing. And you're like, what is it? And I'm like, hey, bro, every day when I go to work, I cut grass.
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
You would be like, of course, like, that's what your job is, right?
Yeah.
And that's why when I get that kind of feedback from people, which I appreciate, and I'm like, that's what this job is.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. And by embracing, when you go with in nature, when you go with what is, nature rewards you. When you go against what is, nature punishes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, just staying focused on this opportunity, man. Like, you know how many people would kick, scream, fight to have the opportunity that you do?
A lot, yeah.
A lot. So it's a privilege. And to me, every day when I wake up, for me not to do what I'm, what I know to do would be disrespectful to all the people that don't have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what it takes in our business, because it takes that we have to lead generate in order to help more people. At the same time, if somebody else is trying to start whatever type of business that they're trying to start, that's step number one, because you can have the greatest product in the world. I mean, you can have the best cheesecake, you can have the best steak, but if nobody knows about it, then what difference does it make, right? So yeah,
exactly, dude. And
the main thing is, for any type of business, if you want to build a successful business, is how do I get people to know about my services, or how do I bring people in the door? Because without that, nothing else happens. So step number one,
well, and what you're saying is accurate in that I would propose that step number one is get cash. Because businesses don't go out of business because they have a lack of ideas. They go out of business because they have a lack of cash.
Yeah.
So never confusing that. Cash is the engine that drives the whole machine. So, I heard this guy, he asked a question to his agent. He's like, okay, let's say I dropped you on an island with 3 other agents, right? I gave you $1,000. I gave you a laptop. What would you do to outproduce all the other agents? Right? So recognizing that cash is the main engine. So there's clouds and there's dirt, right? And Gary Vee talks about this in his book, which I really like, where he says the clouds are things like systems, things like your website, things like, your business plan, things like your mission statement. Those are clouds. Those are kind of thinking about planning. But then there's dirt.
That's
right?
stuff nobody wants.
Dirt in our business is yeah, nobody wants to get dirty, bro. The dirt in our business is picking up the phone every day and making phone calls.
Yeah.
3 hours a day, 6 days a week. The dirt is pre-qualifying those appointments. Sifting through them, because out of all the appointments you set, maybe, there's only 1 or 2 that are motivated and qualified. The dirt is going on those appointments, right? The dirt is asking for price reductions if for some reason the marketplace isn't responding.
Yeah.
And then the dirt is starting over again every day at 0 as though you got, nothing else going on. That's the dirt. Tendency, present company excluded, for most people, in my experience, when they start a business, is too focused on the clouds and not enough focus on the dirt.
Yeah.
And the ratio needs to be like that, right?
Yeah, and that's ultimately what it's going to take to grow a business. So I think that, because I used to work in check cashing back in the day, I'm sure you probably know that, at my parents' business, and I saw a lot of people who seemed really successful, but at the end of the day, their checks were bouncing, meaning that they didn't have sufficient funds. And I really got to see like the back end of somebody who, it appears on the outside that they have a really successful business, And on the back end, like their checks were bouncing. So I would ask myself, like what are they doing? Like, what would I do differently if I was in their position? And ultimately at that time, I didn't really know. But now that I've been in real estate, I know that the main thing is getting customers in the door. Not getting customers in the door, but focusing the cash and then focusing on what am I going to do to grow my business? Like what do I have to do? And generating every single day, like every single day going out there and generating. So yeah, that's big, man.
Yeah, every day that I'm not generating is a day that I'm not in business.
Yep, absolutely, man. Good. So what keeps you hungry, man? What keeps you going to work every single day? Like, I mean, you're successful now. You're what people call successful. You sell a lot of homes on a yearly basis. You got some investments. What makes you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A few things. One, I mentioned earlier, is thinking about all the people that would be affected by my lack of execution. Mm-hmm. And I really think that, for my children to be a role model to them, I don't want to have to tell them that hard work is important. I just want to show them. Mm-hmm. And, exposure, recognizing that what I'm really, I don't say this to be egotistical at all. It's like, I'm not really competing against anybody. I'm competing against myself. Mm-hmm. And realizing that there's different levels of growth, respecting those levels, and staying excited about what that next level is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also not letting victory defeat me. Mm-hmm. So this idea of I saw this thing with Eric Thomas. There was this video, and he was talking about the movie Batman, and there's a scene there where Batman he's fighting Bane, and Bane catches one of his punches, and he says to him like, "Victory has defeated you." Yep. Right, and it's like, what is he saying to Batman? What he's saying is that his victories have made him soft. Mm-hmm. Right, like he's not hungry anymore. Right?
Took his foot off the gas.
And I think that he took his foot off the gas, and my experience is that is very easy to do. I mean, and you're a perfect example of that. It's, you're young, you're successful. You always like for me to mention that you're handsome. Right? It's very easy to begin to rest on that, right? Because in your little, in your sphere of people, you might be the biggest, the fastest, the quickest. You might earn the most, right? So it's very easy to let victory defeat you and make you soft, right? So really being conscious of that, and being conscious of not letting victory defeat me, and staying hungry, staying like that 10-year-old kid at the bus stop selling airheads because I wanted to make $20.
Hey, it's funny as you talk about exposure. It makes me think about that conversation that we were having earlier. You asked me like, how many transactions are you about to do this year? And I'm like, oh, only 63. And they're like, what do you mean only 63?
Yeah.
That's good. And it's good when I compare it to people in my marketplace or to people that are in my area. But when I compare it to people like you who are doing 150 deals, it feels like it's not very much. And that's the thing that you're talking about, like consistently looking for exposure, looking for people who are doing more than you in whatever it is that you're doing. Like if you're a real estate agent, you're doing 20 deals a year. Looking for those people that are doing
and
more.
You're absolutely right. And what I was about to say is that most people are insecure in that they don't want to put themselves around those people, right? Because they'll feel lesser than or whatever. So it's like an ego thing, right? But the more that you expose yourself to people who do more, because all they're doing is holding up a mirror to you. Mm-hmm. And it's what's uncomfortable is sometimes we don't like what the mirror's showing us back.
Yeah.
Right? And that's all they're doing. So like if you kind of project onto somebody else, like, oh, he's doing like this, he probably works too much, la 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 blah blah blah. That's your own stuff. Like they're just reflecting back to you your level of action. And what you don't like and what you're uncomfortable with is that your level of action is not that high, right? Mm-hmm. And then you proceed to make excuses about that. But by being exposed consistently to those folks that are bigger, better, faster, quicker in all areas of your life. You might have a mentor that's like just awesome with his family, terms of being a dad and a husband and a father. You might have somebody in your life that's just crushing it in terms of investments. You might have somebody who's crushing it in terms of business. And by putting yourself in that environment, again, they're holding up a mirror, not only in terms of what's possible, but they're reflecting back to you your level of action at the moment.
Yeah, and not only that, like sometimes
and your level of like, and your level of like urgency.
Mm-hmm. And not only that,
because there's go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think there's like a little bit of a delay, so sometimes I like feel like it ended. But not only that, but like when people think about a mentor, they think like, okay, where do I find somebody like Aaron? Like how did Jose Luis get so lucky to find somebody like that? We talked about it earlier. It can be found in a book, you know. Like you talked about like the mentors from afar, you know.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And with that mirror, you begin to notice the limits that you're putting on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I heard somebody say, I think it was Tony Robbins, I was at an event, and I liked it. And what he said is like the reason why you don't have what you want is because all of the reasons that you tell yourself that you can't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm too old, I'm too, not in good enough shape, I don't have enough energy, I don't know, I started late, I don't have the right education, I need to read more books. Like there's all these kind of reasons as to why.
Mm-hmm.
But those are all the reasons why you're not able to accomplish what you want. Because you're just convincing yourself. It's kind of the story you're telling yourself. I had a mentor, I was telling him, my production year to date, and his response was, is that good? And what was cool about that response is he really wasn't trying to be a jerk. I know him very well. He was not trying to be like flippant or like, uppity. He was just genuinely like, I don't know, is that good for you?
And what did that do to you?
What's so cool about that is two things. Well, two things is one, instantaneously, it made me ask, I don't know, is it good? Right? It was great. I was like, I don't know, is it good? But then the second thing is it made me recognize that there's no ceiling. Like he wasn't putting a ceiling on me. So instead of folks saying to me like, oh, that's great, he was like, I don't know, is that good for you? Is that what you're capable of? Could you do more if you chose to?
And it's the opposite, because I'm sure that most people that you talk to and you say, hey, I sold 150 homes, they'd be like, oh my God, great job. Oh, you're so awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
Like you're the best. Yeah. You're the greatest. And his response was, is that good? So it's like, it's a different level of thinking. And that's what a mentor can provide you with. It just provides you with access to the way that person thinks.
Yeah. And that's the most valuable thing that you can get. Because like the nuts and bolts, like you were saying, like kind of like, in terms of the cake, mm-hmm. It's like you want to make a chocolate cake, right? Which is cool. So then you come up to a chef and you're like, yo, how many eggs do I need? Right? Mm-hmm. How much, flour do I need? How much chocolate do I need? Right? And they can give you the recipe. But a recipe is not worth anything unless you execute the recipe, unless you actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? But their philosophy, what is most valuable, the philosophy, access to the way that they think about things, because the way that they think about things is what allows them to do what they do.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm with you on that 100%. Just access to the way that they think. Like just access to the way that they make decisions about certain things. Do they procrastinate? Do they take action? Yeah,
and little things, just in terms of like approach. Because I'm aware, we've had conversations before where, just little kind of tweaks in, kind of the way that you're thinking about something. I had a call with this other young man that I had the fortune of connecting with, and he was telling me he was doing like this workout thing, like this Navy SEAL thing. And he said to me like, oh, I can't wait till it gets easy. And my response to him is like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's never going to get easy as long as you continue to push yourself. Uh-huh. As long as you continue to grow. So instead of having the goal and objective to be rest and comfort, right? Mm-hmm. Like in the knowing, it's going to get easy. It'll get easier at this level, but then when you go to the next level, there'll be difficulty and challenge. As long as you're ready. And for him, that was like enough to kind of change, the way that he was thinking about it.
Yeah. 100%, that little shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Good, man. Sounds good.
Exactly.
I appreciate it. What are your goals moving forward? Obviously, I mean, you sell 150 homes now. You're in Plantation, Florida. Like, what are some of your business goals, life goals, investment goals?
Yeah, so good question. So in terms of business, I like where we're at, at the moment. My intention is to scale out. I've really, until this point, I haven't really paid attention at all to the buyer side of the business. So my intention is to scale that out a little bit. I know I'm leaving deals on the table, at least 30 to maybe 50.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd like to be at doing like, about 180, 180 to 185 transactions in the next 12 to 18 months. And then really building out this other vertical. As you mentioned, I have the good fortune of authoring a book called Taming Your Sales Gremlin, which will be out shortly. And I have the good fortune of, teaching a class through the Gremlin Taming Institute. And I have done that for like 5 years. So continue to scale that out, in terms of a vertical, do some more speaking and training. And then, take all of that capital and, continue to convert it into assets to build wealth, so that way you're financially free and you own your own time.
All right.
Which I think is the most valuable thing that you can own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Top book that you would recommend right now, man?
Top book that I'm reading right now, or like top book?
Top book that you'd recommend of all time, man. Tell me the good one.
Of all time, I would say Building an Unshakable Character by Jim Rohn.
Okay. You mind? Why is that one? Because I know you read a lot of books.
It's the truth, and he gets to the kind of crux of the situation, which is that in order to do more and have more, you have to become more.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole book is about becoming more, working on your character, working on your level of execution, doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. It's powerful, man.
It's right there. And then, some others that I would follow with that, like 10X, Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant.
Be Obsessed, yeah.
Yeah, bro. And I'd also mix in some stuff, again, about to give perspective. I read a book this year called Coming Out of the Ice by Victor Herman. That was just like, wow, man. I'm reading Undaunted Courage about Lewis and Clark. That's, wow, blow your mind. Like in terms of, human endurance and what people are capable of.
Somebody asked, what's the name of the book? Somebody asked, what's the name of the book on the live stream? So you said the Lewis and Clark one. You said 10X. You said Unbreakable Character by, was that Jim Rohn?
Building an Unshakable Character by Jim Rohn.
Okay, fantastic. Good. I'm trying to see if there's...
Yeah, I'd also recommend, too, Taming Your Gremlin.
Taming Your Gremlin, yeah. Yes. So when does the book come out?
Yeah, so in terms of where we are in terms of process, I'm imagining either probably the second quarter in 2017. And that's a labor of love, man. I've been working on that for five years while, been selling all these homes and teaching that teleclass. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that.
You mind telling me a little bit about the book? And about how you bumped into Taming Your Gremlin? Yeah.
Yeah, so, working up to that 100 deals a year, I was kind of operating under this, false misperception that it's kind of what our culture teaches us, that like success equals happiness. Mm-hmm. And we define success in one way, which is business success, financial success. So I was following the script and I was doing more and I was, making more money and kind of having more. But what I noticed was happening is that kind of anxiousness, that tension, that fear of it kind of all disappearing and going away, that didn't go away. And in fact, it actually increased as I did more. So then I was on a trip. I was in Europe and I was visiting family, and there was a book on the table called Taming Your Gremlin. And my family member, I guess they had a kind of an issue with flying, and the person they were talking to about it told them to read that book. So I opened up the book, and right there in the introduction, it said, like, this book is not intended to lead you to victories or bliss, but it will, however, lead you to enjoying yourself more and more. And I hope reading it brings you much pleasure. When I read that, I was like, man, this is like what I've been looking for. So I devoured the book. And then I did something that I'd never done before because I had read a lot of books, but I'd never done this. Is I picked up the phone and I called the author. And I said, hey, man, this is like awesome. This has made a dramatic impact in the quality of my experience. Will you teach me, the method? He said, sure, I'll do that. So I got some people together at the time and he taught it to us. And then I was like, I want more, man. Like, will you do a workshop for maximizing it? He said, sure. We flew him out. He did that. And then I said to him, look, man, more people should know about this. Like, this is helping me in a major way. What would somebody need to do to be able to kind of teach this to other people? And he was like, well, I don't really do that. I've only let one person do that in 40 years. And I said, well, that's cool. What would I need to do? And he was he was like, well, you'd have to do this, this, and this. You have to train with me for this amount of time. And I'd have to know, like, you really knew this stuff in and out. And you could work with people experientially. And I did that. And, that's spawned kind of a class that I teach through the Gremlin Hemming Institute called The Power of Authenticity, using the Gremlin Hemming method to, enhance your life and increase your bottom line. And that, I've been doing that for 5 years. And then the book came from that teleclass. So essentially what the book is combining, my kind of sales experience and business background with Gremlin Hemming, right? And what Gremlin Hemming is really about is about learning how to regulate where you are on that imaginary pain-pleasure continuum, which is on one end of the continuum feeling kind of hurried, rushed, kind of scared, which was my experience for, all the way up to 100 years, even though I was doing a lot and making a lot of money. And the other end of the continuum is you feeling centered, calm, and clear, spotlight of awareness, firmly rooted in the present moment, open to direct experiences that's unfolding in front of you, uncontaminated by your gremlin or thoughts, about the experience. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, good. Any final thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, bro, I'm just appreciative of our relationship. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to connect and to connect with your tribe. And my sincere hope is that our time together has added value, for sure. If anybody has any other questions about anything, whether it be real estate related, whether it be, if you guys feel free to, hit me up. They can check me out on tamingyoursalesgremlin.com. Got a blog there. We blog, post some articles there. And I look forward to the opportunity to connect.
So if people want to connect with you, man, how can they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can connect with me again, like on that website, tamingyoursalesgremlin.com.
Okay. All right, good.
They can connect with me on Instagram, which is Aaron Novello. And they can connect with me on Facebook as well.
Sounds good, man. All right. Anybody have any questions right before we log off? I know that there's a couple people still on. I think that your microphone is rubbing. I kept hearing it a little bit. Let me see. Anybody else? Good. All right, man. Well, thank you, Aaron, for being a part of the show. You're the second guest. I was really excited about it, and I think that, like always, man, you deliver. You tell the truth, and you're real, man. So I really appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your mentorship, and as always, I appreciate all the guidance that you've given me over the years. So I look forward to remaining friends. I look forward to remaining allies, people aligned for the same path. And I look forward to connecting with you real soon. Thank you, Aaron, for being part of the Jose Luiz Morales Show here at RE/MAX Gold Coast Realtors.
Totally, bro. My pleasure.
Peace out, bro. Good seeing you. Later.